Have you ever actually wondered what happens to children once they've been trafficked? Because it's not what you might think. For girls, normally what happens is once they've been trafficked, they were then force-fed alcohol and drugs to make them more compliant. After this, girls are normally trafficked solely for sexual abuse. There are so many twisted people who will pay to do things like this to young girls. And at this point, on average, these girls have about 7 years to live before they will die from the abuse that they suffer. That's the average life expectancy of a trafficked child. For young boys, they have a similar experience. They'll also be drugged to be made more compliant, but they are also exposed to sexual abuse, but more commonly, they're sold to cartels to do dangerous work that often has a low life expectancy. They're also used as slave labor in factories and sweatshops around the world. And the scariest thing, this whole thing is scary, but often these children are also moved across country to separate them as far as possible from their families, make any idea of escape remote. These kids have not got long to live. So we need to make a stand and make a difference. So please like and share this to boost this, to raise more awareness. Hit follow to help join the movement that's changing this. And tell a friend your awareness could change someone's life. So please do those things and let's make a difference. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you in the next one.
Join me as I dive into the dark world of human trafficking to uncover the truths that are often hidden from us. Human trafficking is one of the most pressing issues of our time, yet it remains shrouded in mystery. It's a crime that happens in the shadows, hidden from prying eyes, and it is imperative that we understand the severity of this problem. Every year, millions of people are trafficked across the globe, their lives forever changed by the experience. Human trafficking is a complex issue encompassing various forms of exploitation. Sex trafficking is one of the most well-known forms, but the labor exploitation is just as prevalent. Traffickers use coercion, manipulation, and force to control their victims, often preying on the vulnerable. The challenge in combating human trafficking lies in the hidden nature. It can occur anywhere, from legitimate businesses to dark alleys. Moreover, the traffickers are becoming increasingly sophisticated. They're using technology to stay one step ahead of the law. The issue is further complicated by the fact that human trafficking is often linked to other crimes, such as organized crime and corruption. This makes it difficult to identify and prosecute traffickers. Additionally, many victims are reluctant to come forward. They are reluctant because of fear of retaliation or shame. As a result, human trafficking remains a largely underreported crime. The lack of education and economic opportunities also contribute to the prevalence of human trafficking. In many cases, victims are lured by false promises of a better life or employment. Once they're trapped, they're forced to work in deplorable conditions or are sold into sex slavery.
The following story may be offensive to some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
They would come into our rooms and I saw the boys being taken away. They didn't have a choice. When they came back, I could tell they couldn't sleep. While we were training for the selection games, those boys were passing blood in the toilets and showers. We could see blood coming out of the pumps. They could not play during the next game. They couldn't run anymore. I didn't understand what was going on, but nobody would talk about it. On the fourth night of the camp, they came to wake me and my best friend. They took us to a room with red lights. It was full of naked men. One of them was Capello. I have forgotten the names of the others. They started touching me and my friend, and I just didn't understand. I wanted to scream. They told me I should masturbate and give them a blowjob. I refused. So then they threatened me, saying that if I didn't do it, I would lose my place in the team. I would be left on the bench until the end of the tournament. I was so shocked. I didn't find any words to speak. All I had left were tears. I saw how they started to wreck my friend. I looked him in the eye. He looked back at me, as if to say, let's just go along with them and get it over with. I started to pray and pray. And then I got up. I wanted to get out, but the door was locked. They grabbed me and threw me onto the floor. There were two security men. It was like they were prepared for this. I tried to fight them off, but they forced me to take them and keep them at the job. I told them I couldn't do it. I cried and screamed and screamed and screamed until they had finished with my friend.
The consequences of human trafficking are far-reaching, affecting not only the victims, but also their families and communities. Poverty and lack of opportunities create a cycle of vulnerability that's difficult to break. When people are desperate, they're more likely to take risk that puts them in harm's way. That's why addressing the root causes of human trafficking is crucial to preventing it. The impact of human trafficking on individuals and communities is devastating. Victims often suffer from physical and emotional trauma, and many are forced to live in constant fear. The trauma can last a lifetime, making it difficult for victims to rebuild their lives.
Trafficked can literally change the makeup of your brain, and why sometimes all survivors need is a little patience.
If they didn't start to learn how to work with manipulation, they'd be dead.
Imagine spending every day in fear that it could be your last. Dee Dee Wallace with the Department of Homeland Security Investigations says that's the reality for victims of human trafficking.
You and I would never understand that the first person that tells you that I love you and I care about you is somebody that's also brutalizing you as they're doing it.
Research shows that it can change your DNA.
But experts say the damage doesn't have to be permanent. The first step to recovery is admitting they're a victim.
When I talk to people and they're like, oh, they did all these dates, I'm like, oh, so they were raped. And they're like, why are you saying that? And I'm like, why are you saying it's a date?
People are really amazing at compartmentalizing and pushing things down.
The latest data from the Human Trafficking Hotline shows 31% of victims are recruited by a family member, 27% an intimate partner, people who are supposed to love and protect them, making their worst nightmares come true.
And the moms are told, unless you make a certain amount of money, you don't even know where your child is. So you're living in that chaos and in that emotional moment every single day, every single hour.
And living in constant chaos, research shows, has a significant impact on the human brain. Let's explain.
So your prefrontal cortex, when it's attached to your limbic system inside, and your brainstem, when they're all attached and they're working, that's a safe environment.
Experiencing trauma, your prefrontal cortex, which allows you to make rational decisions, opens. That disconnects it from your limbic system, which controls your emotions. When the two separate, people can become irrational. So people quite literally flip their lid.
It's like taking a baseball cap off. You can't think straight. And you can't think straight because your prefrontal cortex is not working in conjunction with your limbic system.
And imagine that baseball cap being taken off several times a day, forcing you to constantly live in a state of fight or flight.
So if your brain is at this function where it's looking for danger at all times and it's more that high level, people aren't going to be able to concentrate in school. They're not going to be able to fulfill, a dream of going to college.
So can people ever fully heal from being trafficked?
Yes.
Establishing those connections in the brain can take weeks or even years.
It takes time, but it definitely happens. Therapy is going to help a person understand that they can connect with people and they can live a healthy, happy life.
Andrew says victims must learn to reprocess memories, and they can do that through therapy.
Trauma creates the need for protection, not connection. And instead, therapy is going to help a person understand that they can connect with people and they can live a healthy, happy life.
Andrews and Wallace agree. No matter the trauma, there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Trauma isn't limited to the victims. It also affects their families and loved ones. The emotional toll of watching a loved one being trafficked is immeasurable.
Facts about human trafficking that you may not know from somebody who's worked in the anti-human trafficking industry for close to 4 years now. The most shocking things that I found out from working in the industry is that a lot of traffickers are actually women, and that is because women trust women. So it's easier for them to deceive them. Not all human trafficking looks the same. So for example, the area that I work in is between Nepal and India. And the way a lot of the young women end up in these situations is by deception. A lot of the women are actually led by false promises and false hope of finding employment across the border. In some countries, for example, like in Thailand, a lot of the parents actually sell their own daughters to brothels so that their daughters can send back the money to the families. And then some victims of human trafficking are actually kidnapped. But there is definitely more than one way that human trafficking happens and how victims find themselves in those situations. Once the victims are trafficked, it's about only 2% that are ever actually found again. And then from that 2%, a lot of them actually fall back into that same line of work, because it's what they feel most comfortable in. And the last one I'll share for today is that human trafficking happens in every single country, even yours, even here in Australia. Most people think that human trafficking is an issue that is so far away from home, but it's actually happening in your own backyard. And no country is safe from it. There's so much.
Statistics show that a significant number of people are trafficked every year. But behind every statistic is a real person with hopes, dreams, and a life that's been forever changed. Every single one of us has a role to play in combating human trafficking. We need to educate ourselves and others about the issue, support organizations working to prevent it.
15-year-old who went to a Dallas Mavericks game with her dad was taken from the game and sold into a world that is far from the suburbs of where she's from.
Yeah, it has also opened many eyes how widespread human trafficking is. As Fox 26's Donnelly Keith tells us, it was a Houston man that found this girl. Hear how he did it as she speaks with him only on Fox.
Yeah, you know, most trafficking victims are said to be hidden in plain sight, but to rescue them, one Houston private investigator has to travel into sections of the city and really has to go into a world that most of us only see from the safety of our televisions.
But it was obviously an ad for sex.
And you could clearly see that.
Oh, absolutely.
And you could clearly see her face.
Absolutely.
That's how he found the 15-year-old who was taken from a Dallas Mavericks game and was being trafficked for sex in Oklahoma. But for his safety, we're not showing you his face. He could be killed for this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
JB has been a Houston private investigator rescuing trafficked kids for 8 years. So once the little girl's mom contacted you and said her 15-year-old had been taken from the Dallas Mavericks game, what did you do immediately?
I had the mother send photographs of the child.
And you jumped online?
And I jumped online to try to find her, yeah.
How long did it take you to find her online?
Approximately 5 hours.
In just 5 hours of searching sex ads, her picture popped up.
She looked distraught, surprised that somebody was taking her picture. It did not look like she was posing intentionally for an ad.
Do you feel anxious to get to the kiddos before they're too scarred and harmed?
Absolutely, absolutely. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen enough of the time. So, you know, a child that's being trafficked is literally being raped 8, 10, 12 times a day.
Several people have been charged in connection with trafficking the 15-year-old. The youngest girl JB rescued from sex trafficking was just 11.
We've had a few 12-year-olds, several 13-year-olds. The majority are 14 to 16-year-olds.
JB is a full-time PI who donates his services to find trafficking victims, never charging families a penny.
It needs to be done. For me personally, it's a ministry.
Even as he saves one child, there are plenty others in need of rescuing, and many who return home who will never be the same.
There's no real happily ever after. We just fight to make tomorrow better than yesterday.
In conclusion, human trafficking is a critical issue that requires our attention and action. It's a complex problem with far-reaching consequences, but by understanding its nature and impact, we can work towards a solution. What do you think about human trafficking? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you're interested in learning more about this topic, check out another video on our channel that explores the signs of human trafficking and how you can help to prevent it.